You're listening to the Jōrni Podcast. Could financial wellness be the key to unlocking a healthier, happier you? Stay tuned for the details. This episode contains adult subject matter, and some listeners may be triggered by this content. Listener discretion is advised. Hi, I'm Petra Brunbauer, and with decades of experience with sadness, pain, anxiety, and stress, I finally figured out how to leave all that behind. And this podcast shows you how to break free permanently so you can reclaim your sanity and find the self-esteem and energy to go after the life you desire. With real talk about mental health, holistic healing, and the tough journey of coming out the other end. This is the Jōrni Podcast. Welcome to today's episode. In this episode, we dive into the often overwhelming world of personal finance and explore how to shift our relationship with money from stress to confidence. Our guest helps us understand how financial wellness is not just about numbers, but rather about transforming shame and fear into empowerment and clarity. Sarah Penfold's passion is helping people transform shame and overwhelm with money into power and confidence. She loves creating aha moments and perspective shifts so people find ease and flow with their finances to help build wealth and capacity. Money is an amazing resource and amplifies the hearts of people that have it, which is why Sarah wants to help good people get good with money. Let's meet Sarah Penfold. Hi, Sarah. It's so great to have you on the podcast today. I've been looking forward to getting to chat with you because financial wellness is such a hugely important topic. And I feel like we only ever talk about it when things are really dire and people are actually having challenges with their finances. So I'd love to hear your perspective on why we should actually talk about this outside of those times as well, why that is so important. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Petra. It's a joy to be here.
And would you like to start us off with a little bit about your own story, maybe, and tell us where you think your journey started and how that connects up with what you do today? And maybe tell our listeners also what it is that you do today.
Yeah. So my journey with money started probably about 10 years ago, if I'm honest. I started to realize it was an issue in my life and was trying to get different kinds of support for it. So I tried to address it from the mindset side and hired someone to just help me with mindset. That didn't work. Then I hired someone to help me with a system, but I didn't have any, it was just a system. There was no literacy or emotional stuff with that. So that failed. And then I hired a bookkeeper, but a bookkeeper doesn't help you. They don't coach you. You help them, or that you direct them. And it wasn't until I found my mentor about 6 years ago, and she put the three things together, which is financial literacy, the system, and the self-awareness piece together, that it was the huge unlock for me, because I was at a place where I was really emotionally sort of crippled by my perceived financial woes, which were, 6 years behind in my taxes, small debt cycles, not hugely crippling, but I wasn't able to start saving the amounts that I wanted to. And I was just in a paycheck to paycheck cycle, even though I was making really, really great money. And after working in her program for 3 months, everything changed for me. I couldn't believe it. I felt so confident and excited about what was happening with my money and the things that I was seeing growing. And I wanted to continue the work. And then she invited me to work with her in her program. So I worked with her for another 2 years, supporting her teaching, coaching, kind of mentoring under her. And then on the side, I was also just inhaling financial books, courses, everything I could. And it got to the point where I just wanted to teach things in my own way and my own methods. So yeah, I've been doing that for just over 2 years now.
That sounds really exciting, actually, to change your perspective around money, because I have a feeling that a lot of people, and myself included some time ago, have a really negative relationship with money. They struggle, they live paycheck to paycheck, and money is sort of this elusive thing that is seen as a very negative thing you have to chase after. There's never quite enough. It causes a lot of problems when you don't have it. And also a resentment of why we have to suffer this way. And these skills really aren't taught in school either. So we come out of high school, we come into our adult life, and we don't actually know anything about finances or what we should be doing with it. So I find this really exciting that you're taking up this baton and you're championing this cause for helping people address their financial wellness. And so when we talk about that, we throw the term financial wellness around, but what actually does that mean? In your sense or in what you teach, what does that actually mean to you? And how do you present that to the clients that you work with?
Yeah. So I'll kind of approach this from two ways. One is I realized that healing your relationship with money was so important for wellness because of my own personal experience with it. Like the stress evaporated. I felt like I had more capacity for the things in my life that I cared about. I didn't know what I didn't know. And I had never had that kind of way of being with money. And when I got there, it was like, oh my gosh, more people need to feel this. And a bunch of things hit me, like just the amount of human potential that was trapped underneath financial stress and worry. I'm like, I want to free that up. And you can actually go and look at the stats. There's numerous studies. One of the big ones I referenced was from the US, and where 72% of people say that finances was contributing to their stress. And stress has so many negative health effects. And I just realized, as someone who was always interested in personal development and growth and coaching and wellness, that in all my time kind of in this like learning phase, I had never had someone talk to me about financial wellness. I had to like get to a point where I was in so much pain and suffering that I forced myself to change. And so I just wanted to change that narrative and, bring it to the fore, because money is so taboo in our culture. We don't talk about it. I often ask the question, think of your closest friends and the really intimate things you know about them, and you probably don't know about their money and finances, right? Like we don't even talk about it with our closest friends and family. So I'm here to sort of presence that and open up the pathways to really turn down the stigma and have some open conversations about money and the impacts it has on people's health and wellness.
Yeah. And I feel like stress is one of the things that happens, but money can also affect our relationships. It can affect, divorce rates and all a whole bunch of other things, and our physical health because of that chronic stress. And people I know actually take very drastic measures if they're in financial, very dire straits, and people have ended their lives over these challenges. So this is such a very important topic that, like you said, doesn't get talked about much. And so when people come to you and they want to work on their finances, is this usually because they're in a place similar to where you were at and they have realized that they need help? Or do they come preventatively, or is that not really a thing?
Most of the people come because they're in some amount of discomfort. I remember hearing once that we change because we're in some kind of pain or suffering, or we get inspired. And usually with money, it's the former, right? So we're in some sort of pattern or discomfort. And so, yeah, it's one of the first things that I work with people on is actually taking the hard step of looking at their numbers, because that is honestly probably just below the surface of awareness of like what people resist doing. They don't want to look, they don't want to see. And until you do that, you are sort of still at the effect of the system. You're giving the system and money the power. And by looking, you take that power and control back, and then you can start getting into action. And, depending on your situation, yeah, it might be, a bit challenging for a while if you're paying down debt, but at least you're in control and you're working towards something. And regardless of where you're at, every month, every week, you're increasing your net worth. And that's what I want people to remember. Even if it's just getting out of a negative, you're increasing your net worth every single week. So that's really the first thing. And then really closely aligned with that is teaching people the EQ piece. So I believe strongly in this sort of three-pronged approach of literacy, because knowledge is power, of the system, because you have to have a plan, you have to track, it's not glamorous, but once the system is built, it's really, really low touch. It's not something you need to spend a lot of time on. And then the third piece is kind of the mortar of all of that sticks everything else together, which is the EQ and understanding, what are my beliefs? Where did they come from? What are my emotional responses and reactions? And like, why am I doing it that way? And just kind of helping people reframe and bringing mindfulness. If we're not making decisions about money from a place of knowledge and facts, we're making it from an emotional place. And that's where a lot of people get into trouble, is they're constantly making emotional decisions about money.
That makes a lot of sense. Also, considering some of the feelings that come up around money, like maybe fear or shame, if you haven't been able to manage it, to actually admit that you do need help. So I feel like this emotional piece is so deeply tied to our financial beliefs and challenges that we experience. And is that sort of the core of why people don't like addressing their finances? Are the emotional pieces, or a fear, or maybe, like I said, being ashamed of what has happened? Or are those some of the things why people don't want to address their financial issues?
It's a really lovely cocktail of shame and guilt and different versions of fear, often beliefs, these sort of subconscious beliefs, even about, money is the root of all evil, or whatever version of that people have from their upbringing, or how they've, learned to view money throughout their life. And, teasing apart money versus the system, because the system is a racket. Like, I'm not here to deny that. There is definitely corruption and a lot of BS in the system, but money is actually a really beautiful thing. And, some people will talk about the energetics of money, and the way I sort of make that real is that, we do things in the world, we do our work in the world, and we get money from that. And so regardless of that number, it's an energetic exchange that you get. And so the money in your bank account is kind of the energy that you put into the world. And then, like, what are you doing with that energy? Are you, spending it on Amazon every night? Are you ignoring it? Like, do you have all these expenses that you don't know about, and you're just like putting your head in the sand and ignoring it? And it's sort of this mirror of like it comes back to the mindfulness piece, right? Like, what are we ignoring within ourselves? And so it can be a little bit confronting, like any journey to healing. Like, there's something that you have to look at. The thing about money is there's like a very literal return on investment by doing the work and starting to heal that relationship.
Yeah, that's true. So actually, if we do invest, there's usually something that comes back. So, but I like the idea of this energy as well, because I do look at money as a tool very often, a tool to accomplish different things in life. So I find that just changing your perspective around those beliefs has been really healing in a way, rather to think of it as something that I punish myself with because I can't get it or something like that. So yeah. Do you find that it's difficult to change these subconscious beliefs? Is that something that your clients sometimes have challenges with, especially if maybe these beliefs come from childhood or even from their parents or someone else in their family? How does that work? How can we actually change these beliefs?
It can be challenging. Sometimes, one of my favorite quotes is, a miracle is simply a change in awareness. And so sometimes just knowing can make such a shift. In my own journey, for example, I come from a lineage of farmers. My dad's family is farmers. And I had a subconscious belief of that making more money meant that I would have to work harder, because there's such a correlation for farmers of like physical effort and money coming in. And even just having that reflected back to me, I was like, oh, like, it was such an immediate shift that it turned the volume on that down so strongly. And I was able to just, my perspective started shifting. Now, that doesn't mean there wasn't still things there to work on. And, versions of that would come up and I'd have to be mindful. But just that initial aha was such a big shift. And then I'm actually certified in the EFT tapping modality. So I use that in my work and have scripts that I share with people, and we'll do sessions in my group programs or one-on-one. And that can really help unearth some of the root causes and just shift those from the consciousness. Yeah.
Yeah. I love EFT.
I know.
Yeah, it's such a great modality, not just for money, but for any kind of subconscious barriers that we're holding on to that are no longer serving us.
I love it too. I'm a big mental health advocate. I talk openly about my own struggles with anxiety over the years, and I've in my own healing with trauma therapy and EMDR, which I'm a massive fan of. You have to go to a practitioner and pay to do EMDR. You can with EFT as well, but you can also learn the modality and then do it on yourself. So that is one of the things I just love about it, is that it is so accessible to anyone to have really powerful shifts that have been studied. Like there's kind of no denying now the power of EFT to shift your subconscious.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely evidence-based, and I think there are more and more studies about it every year. So, yeah. Oh, that's so great. I love that component of shifting these beliefs. So, if we lay this out for our listeners a little bit, I'm guessing the first step, if they want to sort of peek at their finances, if they're feeling there's a bit of a disconnect of where they are and where they want to be, or they actually are facing challenges like debts or tax arrears and things like that. First step, by the sounds of it, is this creating this awareness, so actually looking at the finances and creating an awareness of what's going on. And where do we go from there? What does that look like when you work with clients on that?
Yeah. So one of the things I love about the system that I have is once you've done the work of mapping everything out, then we start automating everything. So it becomes really hands off. And we do this over time to sort of ease into it. And because people need to learn to trust the systems, they need to learn to trust themselves. And what ends up happening is, instead of having all this energy worrying about money, now in the system, like everything is flowing where it needs to go every month. And aside from going in and checking every month and just tracking, you are really, really hands off. So yeah, we do the monthly check. If you have a change in your income, then, things can be adjusted. But yeah, freeing up that mental and kind of physical energy around money is like key. Yeah. And then it's just continuing, especially so my programs are 3 months long, but financial cycles are monthly and they're annual. So 3 months will get you kind of 80% there. And then it's just maintaining that system over the course of a year. And I offer different kind of levels of support as well to kind of help people get through that year, because life happens. And this is the piece that I think is so key with the EQ, because don't get me wrong, lots of coaches teach literacy and systems, which is so key. And it's a massive, massive part of the financial journey. And if you are not equipped when life happens to have the awareness, then that can cause you to kind of revert back. And, it happens. I get it. And having the tools to just get back on the horse and not that in itself is a skill. And so I'm always talking about progress over perfection. Whatever system you create, it's very rarely is it going to be consistent for the rest of your life. There's going to be bumps, but having the wherewithal to just get back on it and know that that's what life is. It just happens. So yeah, just sort of that offering those long-term touch points in order to help people get through a big annual cycle, I think is important as well.
And I'm kind of feeling like once they've been through that with you by their side, it might become a little bit easier going forward, going into the next monthly cycle and the next annual cycle, because you're understanding what you're doing, what you're focusing on, what you shouldn't be focusing on. So, yeah,
Yeah.
it sounds like that will actually build sort of a framework for people to go forward into with their financial wellness. And what do you notice? So, when you came out of the space where you had a lot of anxiety around money and you had debt and you were really worried about that, and that actually changed then to becoming more aware of things, putting a plan in place, automating things. What did that shift in you, and how did your life change? How did you feel differently, or did anything happen when that
Oh, so
perspective
much
shifted?
happened. Yeah, so much happened. Hope, first of all, happened. Self-trust happened. And then, like I said, just like I knew that I was stressed about money. And so that I was assuming that that would lift, but there was all this other layer that I really didn't fully realize was there and like in my system until it was gone. And it was really, it's hard to explain because if you haven't had an experience of being in a good relationship with money, you don't know. And that's one of the challenges is that people often don't have sort of a lived experience of what they're working towards, right? They're just like, oh, it'll get better, but they don't know how much. So I wish there was like a pill I could give people to take, like this is how it'll feel if you get better. And actually to riff on that, I mean, that is one area where I see, actually there's three areas where I see people get really preyed upon because they want that quick fix. It's money and love and body, like weight. So there's not a quick fix to anything, but that doesn't mean it needs to be a slog forever. So my intention with my program is that I've condensed everything I've learned, the best pieces of what I've learned into just under 3 months. And that'll get you, 80% there. But the other thing that I want to share, and I teach this in some of my free workshops that I do, is this concept of self-care and self-soothing, which is, self-soothing are sort of these behaviors that we do that are, I kind of layer this with hedonic pleasure, right? We want to get out of discomfort, whether that be the stress of a long day at work or difficult day at work or, a difficult conversation we have. We just want to get out of that discomfort. So, we buy a bag of chips or we go down the scroll hole of Instagram or we binge watch our Emily in Paris or, whatever it is. And don't get me wrong, like there's moments when we just need to do that, but switching the percentage of like when we're doing that versus when we're actually doing self-care practices, which are, okay, maybe I just need to go for half an hour walk. Maybe I need a nap. Maybe I just need to sit down and breathe on my yoga mat for 10 minutes. Like these are the things that we're trying to incorporate now into our lives and really start utilizing our nervous system as a tool to help change our lives. And so the opposite of hedonic pleasure it's called eudaimonic pleasure. And it is the pleasure that comes from living into your purpose, self-expression, feeling like you're doing something worthwhile or good in the world. And getting your money in order does that for you, right? Like if you are building something towards your goals, whether it be a home, whether it be a bucket list trip, whether it be contributing to a cause that you really, really care about, supporting your community in a different way. Like these are all really important things that bring a different kind of satisfaction and joy and pleasure than just those like quick dopamine hits, which will take us down into, often layers of debt. Because honestly, some people have, the retail therapy, spending addiction. So yeah, just giving people these awarenesses to just think differently about how they're spending their energy and their money, I think is part of, yeah, it's just part of the toolkit that they get when they're working with me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because, in a way, how we handle finances becomes a coping mechanism for whatever things are going on in our lives. And if there's a lot of stress and a lot of bad things, this can become a very self destructive coping mechanism in the end. So, yeah. Yeah, and then it's good to learn about that and good to understand that there are other ways that we can go about that and care for ourselves at the same time. I kind of want to ask you about how do you feel about this works for some people or not for other people, because there may be some listeners who are going to tell you, well, I've tried for years and I just suck at money and my whole family sucks at money and this is never going to change for me. So is this really possible to change this perspective, to change your relationship with money, to change your financial wellness? Is this possible really for anyone? Or have you had instances where that just didn't work for someone at all?
So, yes, I believe that anyone has the capability of changing. I can only take someone down the path if they want to walk it. And so, yeah, that's why I'm really honest about the fact that just taking my course and like reading it isn't going to like solve your money problems. You have to come to my work ready to do some work, because it is kind of like I said, there's like more work to be done over the first arguably 8 weeks. It kind of lightens up towards the end, but like there is work required. It's like anything. If you want to get strong, you have to go to the gym on a regular basis until it becomes habit. So yeah, I think there's lots of reasons people start and then fall off the horse. I'm always here to like help people when they're ready to get back on. But I wanted to address specifically some of the things you said around like, because what I heard in the examples that you gave, and there's lots of sort of versions of the dialogue that people will have, is I hear family trauma in that. Like, I'm bad at money, my family's bad at money. I'm like, yeah, but your family was never taught. Like, whatever. I could get all cynical and be like, oh, the system made it this way. Like they get it. But I, regardless of it, I think the system benefits from our ignorance. And one of the things that I really found is because I have a little bit of that like maverick, like fight the system kind of energy. But I found that becoming literate and getting good with my money was actually a much bigger form of protest than staying ignorant and, oh, I'm better than the system, because there's these things that we can tell ourselves like, I'll take the moral high ground and not engage with the system because the system is corrupt, right? So yeah, at the end of the day, it's a choice. And there's definitely been people that have come to me where there's some serious stuff to look at. And I am the first person to be like, I'm not equipped. Like, I think you actually need to go and get some therapeutic support. Like there's some trauma or situation that's too big for me to address with the skill set that I have. And I don't want to be like, I don't want to scare people off, but this is personal work and it is transformative, and you do have to be willing to look at the layers.
Yeah. And just by looking at the effects that you've described, how that changed you and how that changed your life, we can see how deep this can go and how many things this can affect. So it's definitely, I would say, something that's really worth working on it.
Yeah.
But like you said, you have to become aware of things and actually come to a point where you want to change things and work on that. So yeah.
Well, I think that's why, honestly, I do love the work so much, because, I do love personal growth and development. And I found that I came to the money work thinking I was just going to learn a skill set, but it was so, so much deeper. And that's why I love it, because it's so completely transformative for people. And I get so excited when I think about, yeah, all the change and things that people can experience in their life by doing this work.
Yeah, and I see that often when people do get their finances worked out, how they change as a person, how they show up differently for their families or at their work with their friends. They're like a completely different person. So I see these effects are just so profound, and I can tell how passionate you are about this topic.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. Now, you've touched on the program that you offer and some of the resources that you have available, but would you like to go in a bit more detail for our listeners if they've kind of sparked a bit of curiosity with today's conversation, or they want to know a bit more or see how they can connect with you? What's available for them? How can they work with you?
Yeah. So I offer one of my free things that I have is a Sacred Money Archetypes quiz. So this is a training that I've received and I can now offer And basically you take the quiz about 7 minutes maybe, and you get your top 3 money archetypes. And this is more along the financial EQ pillar that I teach. So it's about understanding a little bit about the strengths of your archetype and maybe some of the challenges that you might face. And so each archetype has the challenges and the strengths. And so there's exercises, a couple little exercises when you go through that quiz to like lean into your strengths a bit more. So that's free. If you feel like you're ready to take the first step, I do have a program called The First Step, which is really guiding people through taking the look at their finances. And then there's my big signature program, which is called Financial Flow. And it's 9 modules. We do it over 11 or 12 weeks. So it's like 3 weeks on, 1 week off. So you get weeks to integrate and, catch up and just take a breath because, it's a lot of work. And then, we also do the literacy in that program. You get all the systems and the sheets, and then we really dive into the EQ piece. So you come out of that course really, really well equipped in these 3 really important pillars to, fly on your own with your finances if you want to. And then after that, there's kind of like monthly check-ins and different ways that people continue to like get support if they want it. But those are my big offerings right now.
Amazing. And is one of your signature programs coming up? Is there an opportunity for listeners to join you in the near future for that?
Yes. So I do 3 cohorts a year. The next one is starting at the end of April.
Perfect. So we're in good timing for that.
Yeah.
So our listeners have some chance to connect with you, check out your offerings, make a decision, see how they feel, and possibly join you for that program at the end of April. And of course, we will be linking to all of Sarah's offerings in the show notes as well. So be sure to check there on how you can connect with her. And if you end up working with her in her program, send me a message on Instagram and let me know how that worked for you, because I'm always so amazed by this magic that happens when our guests and our listeners connect together and lives change, transformations happen. So I love to hear about that so that I can actually talk about that on the podcast too. So let us know what happened for you. And I really am curious to find out the transformations that people go through, because money is such a huge thing, and being able to address that in your life, I think it will make a huge difference. So thank you, Sarah, for joining us today and for sharing this knowledge and this wisdom that you have gathered through your own journey with our listeners and with myself. I feel like I already, again, shifted my perspective on money just by talking to you today.
That's my goal. I love creating like aha moments for people. So mission accomplished.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope our listeners too are walking away with some of those nuggets, some of their own aha moments, and some inspiration to connect with you and maybe tackle the financial challenges that they've kind of swept under the rug and they didn't want to look at. But maybe now is the time to take a look and see how you can put a handle on those things. So thanks so much for being here today. I truly appreciate the time you've spent. And I wish you all the best and lots of success with the program coming up in April. And thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you so much. It was great to be here.
Wonderful. Take care, Sarah.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen in. If you enjoy the Jōrni Podcast, please support us by subscribing, sharing on social media, and leaving us a review. We appreciate you. And you can find more of The Jōrni on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and our website, thejōrni.com. Sending you love and courage, and see you next time.